بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، رحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. روحي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء، يا غريب يا مظلوم يا شهيد بأرض كربلاء. ثم السلام عليكم يا أهل الغزال الحسين مظلوم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم. أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتابه الحكيم وهو أصدق الصادقين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لأولي الألباب، ما كان حديثا يفترى ولكن تصديق الذي بين يديه وتفصيل كل شيء وهدى ورحمة لقوم يؤمنون. It's been gratifying to continue the series of these lectures based on this particular verse of the Quran. As I often say, the Surah of Yusuf is one of the most probing surah of the Quran. It is the model for narrative ethics. And how do you understand your own relationship with other human beings? How do you manage that relationship? Not only by asking what is my duty to do in this case, rather to ask, how do I live with this situation? Situation is not ideal all the time, it's human history changes. And the situations change sometimes every moment. What we have learned in these days and what we should be taking away from these lectures is the complexity of human realities. Human life is not straight line. I wish it were a straight line so that you would go from one point and reach the end without any problem. But human life is, as many philosophers would tell you, it is roller coaster. If you are careful, you might succeed reaching your goal. If you're not, careful, you might be consumed in the middle of your walk. From the very first night that we came together in this place, we raised an important question, and that question was about how do we assess a narrative? What is it about the story that we have opened many, many pages of that history during these nights? There has not been a single night when we did not make a reference to some historical event. In fact, we were depending on the historical events to understand what we were saying. As I mentioned to you, there many a time in the modern world, in the rationalistic society, human emotion is downplayed because we want to show we are rational beings. Our rationality is taking us to some kind of dry decisions about events. So we hear the events. Imagine the story that you read in the papers, you read in a book somewhere, that a man decided to leave his family and make his future in another place. Not realizing what was his primary obligation, what was his primary duty. His ambition took him. He went away to another place without realizing what the family will do and how the family will suffer. The ethical question arose that is it the sense of duty only that you should consider? Or there is more complex issues connected with your decision making? Would Imam Hussain alayhi salam would have made a rash decision to leave Medina, to come to Makkah, to leave Makkah at the peak of the Hajj season, and did so many things that you and I are baffled sometimes. He's not listening to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. He's not listening to Ibn Abbas. He's saying, no, I know what I'm doing. They all are warning him. These Kufans are not to be trusted. Look the way they treated your father. And yet Imam Hussain took the letters that came to him very seriously because they had written in those letters, we need an Imam. We need someone who can guide us. Was it the sense of duty that Imam Hussain pursued, saying that I'm, as an Imam, required to go? Or should he consider his family situation? Should he consider the dangers awaiting him? How many other realities he had to take into consideration before moving? It wasn't a rash decision. If the outcome was not weighed by Imam Hussain, he would not have taken any of the women with him. His sisters, his daughters, the wives of his companions, they all came. As I mentioned last night, there were about 52 children on the Ashura day with Imam Hussain. 52. It's not a small number. And yet that decision had to be made. We are puzzled about the ethics of history. How are historical moments decided? And I think what we touched upon during these lectures was that there is a difference between an event in which transcendence is involved. Some kind of eternity is involved. This is what we call the theology of history, where you weigh about what we call the consequences at a larger extension than you can, do it in simply two countries fighting with one another, two communities fighting with one another. What you have is the transcendence is involved, divinity is involved, and people are asking about questions about God. What is God doing in all this? Why doesn't he put a stop to this injustices? Doesn't it come to your mind? So many injustices occur even between us. And yet we have no way of stopping that. And in fact, we get drawn into injustices. A community is not a good way of assessing human consciousness, because community has no collective conscience. Please listen carefully. We depend upon each individual who comes in these lectures to assess the outcome of this lecture. Because everybody is not coming with the same goals. Some are coming to understand the ultimate goal of life. How do I live is going to be understood here. That will be the takeaway for that person. What you and I are assessing is the ability of this day is to become an event that is transcendent. Imam Hussein's message is divine message. When he's confronted with a situation that he cannot fight anymore, the main question that he is asking, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to sacrifice my life or not? Should I not sacrifice my life? Maybe it will have an impact that nobody knows, but God knows about it. My brothers and sisters, it's easy to talk about these things, but to actually be in that situation, in the battlefield to make those decisions. Little wonder Imam Sahib al-Zaman said, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fa'afuza fawzan azima. In the ziyarah, I wish I were with you, that I would have reached the same success that you reached. The success is being assessed by Imam Sahib al-Zaman later on. This is the other Shuhada Karbala. I wish I was with you and I would have succeeded in giving my life the way you did. In other words, even up to Imam Sahib al-Zaman, it was quite clear that without giving life, the mission would not have been completed. So one thing we are sure, 100%, that the decision Imam Hussain made was very carefully worked out. It wasn't a very hasty decision, no. When he's talking to Ibn Abbas, he's quite clear. He said, I know what you're talking about. Cousin, I know what you're talking about. But I can't stay here. If I stay in Makkah at this time, the result will be much more disastrous. Because he already knew what was happening in the politics. When politics enter ethics, by the way, ethics is defeated. I'm sorry to say that. Ethics is defeated. Politics is always successful. You want to spread a lie? Just tell one person, this is the lie. And you already heard the cause, the mission. The mission of Imam Hussain would have been hurt deeply if the politics were successful. And Imam Hussain was careful not to allow the politics to move in the direction they wanted to move. Banu Umayyah's plan was very clear. To kill Islam where Islam began from. There can be no other reason for them to go after Imam Hussain. Why not Abdullah ibn Zubayr? Why not, Abdullah bin Umar? They were also prominent people, but it was Imam Hussain who carried the burden of the prophetic mission. He was alone. He could depend on his family. Look at the way he depended upon his family, so much so that he was careful. The first meeting he had with Walid bin Utbah in Medina, he took his family, he took his young people with him. He said, you wait outside with their swords and everything with them. So they were fully armed. And Imam Hussain knew that they would try to do something to him. Walid bin Utbah, you think will peacefully talk to him about what he has to mention to him about Muawiyah's death and other things? No. He knew what Walid was going to do. And therefore he had his Abbas was there, all of them were there, all the brothers, everything. Imam Hussain told them, if my voice is raised, you come in. And they were talking, Walid bin Utbah was talking to Imam Hussain. You can see this dialogue that is going on between him and Walid. Before that, Walid is already consulting Marwan ibn al-Hakam. He's the greatest enemy of Islam. Can you imagine what Marwan has become today? He's a hero in the Arab world. Yes, you go there and find out how many children are named Marwan. Marwan was the enemy that the Prophet kicked him out of Medina and said, I don't want you to be here. You're dangerous to my family. Here is Marwan with Walid, and they're talking to one another, and Marwan says, hey, if you let him go tonight, you're not going to succeed at all. He will never come under your, rule or your submission. No, he will not. And Walid bin Utbah is, well, quite interestingly, a man with conscience. He says, Marwan, your advisory is something which will push me out on the last day of judgment and put me in hell. So he knows very well that touching Imam Hussein, doing any harm to him, is going to cost him his akhirah. Under those circumstances, when Imam Hussein is there inside now and talking to Walid, and Marwan is there too, he has already informed and influenced Walid, but Walid was his own, he was his own, he had his own conscience. Imam Hussein simply said, look, this is, because he gave him the news that Muhammad is dead now. Yeah, okay, we know that. And I know why you are calling me. I think you want me to pay allegiance to you. But we can do it in public because I'm a public figure. You do in the mosque when others will pay allegiance, I'll pay allegiance. Didn't say anything more than that. And Walid said, that's good. Okay, because Walid also was trying to look at the problem in such a way that he would not incur the wrath of God in this matter. But he knew the position Imam Hussein was holding. And as soon as he said this, Marwan said, if you let him go now, you'll never get him. And Imam Hussein his voice was raised, and all Ahlul Bayt came in. In other words, he was fully prepared. He knew the consequences. We call this consequential ethics. Those ethics that are informed by what will happen in the future, what will happen if this thing is carried out. The whole history of Karbala, as we discussed during these nights, moved in such a direction that it became quite clear for all of us that if this is the situation, then we cannot afford to forget Karbala. We cannot afford to forget Karbala. To forget Karbala would be to forget the mission of Imam Hussein. And to forget the mission of Imam Hussein would mean to forget the mission of Imam Ali, Hazrat Fatima, Hazrat the Prophet, and all of them, I would say, if Hussein is Waris Adam Asifatillah, then to forget the mission of all the prophets. So important, so central. The sacrifice would have been the sacrifice of all the Anbiya before, all the Awsiya before. It was not an easy decision to make. And that's why we say we need to consider Karbala as an event. That means this is the event we can never close. It is not history. History would close down at a certain point. History would tell you, you've done your work, the story has been told, books have been written, research has been done, it's over. Like we talk about racism today here in this country. Racism is over. We have written about it. We know what we have done wrong. No, wait a minute. Racism is an event. You cannot just run away from it. It's going to come and pinch you all the time. Today, one of the tragedies of our own historical studies in this country is to avoid hard discussions about issues in which the event is still dominant. Racism is still dominant in this country, in the culture of the Europeans. Where is it now? You want to see racism in Middle East, you can see racism in Jordan, you can see racism in Syria. You just go there and find out what are the attitudes of the people toward blacks. The world is still there, trying to say, we are very justful, we want to establish democracy, we want to establish this and that. But one thing is missing. Nobody's talking about accountability. We are accountable for what we do. How can we run away from accountability? That's what Imam Hussein is teaching us, by the best takeaway for us, for you and me is, remember you are accountable for what you do. Don't take your giving in, your contribution as a minimum. If you started the problem, you will be held accountable until the day of judgment. This is known as accountability. Trumpism cannot disappear overnight. Now we've seen it. That's how it came up. And one of the things that the university courses have not been able to teach is how to deal directly with racism. I'm not talking about only one issue. Racism is one of the prominent issues. But with it is entirely connected what we call our constitutional greatness. We, the people of the United States of America, we the people? Or should we say, we the white people? Or we the Europeans? There's so many hidden things, by the way. This is how you read history. This is how you read Imam Hussein's history. This is how you understand Yazid. You will not understand as Yazid if you did not know the politics of Banu Umayyah. That's why you see in Banu Umayyah, Qatiba, all of them. We curse all of them, but they all are involved. There was nobody to escape it. If you knew what they were doing to the followers of Imam Ali, what they did to the followers of Imam Hussein, you would be shocked. History is not quiet. They have written. One of the problems with Tabari was that when he was writing history, he had this ideal in the mind. And the ideal was that the third caliph is very, very pious. The third caliph has to be, restored to the same level as the 1 and 2. That's what he did, by the way. You open Tabari and the history, and you read it, and that's what the history tells you. That Tabari was going through his own conscientious battle. You are doing the research and you know what the research is telling you. You see the riwayat that are pro, you see the riwayat that is against, and you say this against riwayat are more and more authentic than this pro riwayat are. You're a scholar sitting there and deciding what should I accept. That's why I say, with the memory, belief interferes. When somebody says something about something, you say, well, do you really remember this? Yes, I do, because I really firmly believe in this. You already confessed. You firmly believe, that means you will distort it the way your belief is telling you to distort it. See what happens? Distortion occurs with the belief. You are worried about historians who are writing from the angle of belief. If they write from the angle of belief, that means they are distorting the information. For you and me, we are getting second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand information, all made up of the belief of the author. Imagine how difficult our task is. Somebody doesn't like Abdullah bin Jafar al-Tayyar. This is Mir Zainab's husband. You should see the way Abdullah is painted in the history. It's shocking, by the way. It's appalling. The way Abdullah is, they show him as, a womanizer, a this, and that, fully rolling in money and going to Cairo and Damascus. You see the history, and this is where the biographical dictionaries are of great help. Because what I do when I see the name of, I see Abu Makhnaf is mentioned by Tabari. I go and find out who this Abu Makhnaf is. This reporter, he was in Karbala. Or Hamid bin Muslim, for example, is mentioned in the Karbala all the time. So you go in the Kitab al-Rijal, biographical dictionary, and you find them about them. And they tell you, Abu Makhnaf was a liar. He was already biased. He was this, he was that. Now you find that in the biographical dictionary, you don't even suspect when you're reading the history that anything that is reported in Al-Luhuf, Ibn Tawus's book on the Maqtal of Imam Hussain, you don't even know how much to believe of Al-Luhuf. But Al-Luhuf has been written with great care. You want to see something written by the Shia author is I'lam al-Wara, Tabarsi. I'lam al-Wara is one of the best histories. And you open any page, you feel comfortable because he's not trying to hide. You know what you're worried about is the true event might not reach you, and that will be injustice to Imam Hussain. The true story must be told. The true event must be reiterated time and again. Allah says, remind them of the stories when the falsehood and the truth are fighting. Ayyamillah. Yawmullah is when the truth and falsehood fight with one another. How many false people get away with their falsehood? And Allah says, no, I will not let you go. I will catch you. I'll send Moses for you. I'll send Jesus for you. I'll send Muhammad for you. I'll send Abbas for you so that they will expose your double games that you are playing. But then the Quran mentions, shame on those who accuse others of something that they have not believed in, they have not even mentioned it. What will happen to them? These are the materialistic people who tell lies about others. How many lies in the historical sources are we going to confront? You and I, Mahmoud Ayub, the professor, blind professor who wrote about the idea of redemption in Islam. Yes, the thesis was weak, let's say. But what he collected as his information was very convincing. He was very careful in writing about Baytul Ahzan. His chapters are beautifully mentioned. It says Baytul Ahzan. This is, by the way, you remember, does anyone know what is Baytul Ahzan? This was the house that was built by Imam Ali for Fatima al-Zahra in the Jannah al-Baqi. It was where she used to go and cry. Because while she was crying at home in Medina, the neighbors complained, oh, she's crying all the time, we can't stand it. Lies. They simply did not want Fatima to cry for her father because she knew when she was crying, at least the whole earth was crying with her. She was no ordinary woman. She was a woman of personality, a woman of light. And when she was crying, the whole earth was shaking in Medina. We can't handle it. We can't handle it. They opened Baytul Ahzan. Imam Ali built a small hut for her. And she used to go with Hassan and Hussein every day and sit there and cry and remember her father. She did not have a right to remember her father in the city of Medina. Can you imagine this? Historians are even not talking about it. Where have you seen it? My brothers and sisters, where do you see people being denied the right of expressing their emotions for the dead, for the people that love them, who are no more with them in their life? I can go on. But my question tonight for all of us is that, what do we take out? What is our takeaway from these lectures that we all attended very faithfully? I see some of the faces were here every night. Men and women both. They came every night. And they were a source of encouragement for me. After all, a speaker needs people, to listen. So I had a good number of students, so to speak. This was my class of how to study history and what should we look out for. It is a 10th night. My father wrote a small booklet about the 10th night in Gujarati language, Indian language, for the community in East Africa. Ek Ratri, one night. And he talks about Ashura night. It was one of the very holy nights, my brothers and sisters. It is not without reason that anybody who sits awake tonight and remembers Imam Hussain, it is like worshipping in Kaaba the whole night. What is so special about Imam Hussain to remember this? What did he do? What did he achieve that you and I should be always hanging on to it? We don't want to give it up. We don't want to give it up. Imam Hussain has given it to us as the amana. It is a trust for you and me. It's not because we are the followers of Ahlul Bayt or we are the followers of Ahlul Sunnah. No, we are the Muslims who claim to be Muslims today. If we are Muslims, then we should have the courage to examine, am I really a Muslim? The answer will come. Are you able to see what happened tonight to the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It requires a lot of courage, my brothers and sisters, to think about what happened to Imam Hussain. I'm telling you, I was doing my homework for tonight and I read historical accounts and I could not believe, I'm being very honest, I could not believe that Muslims could do that to their Prophet's grandson. I could not believe. I'm not exaggerating. You know me, I don't exaggerate. I don't. Even when I teach or here, wherever, I try to be as clear as possible and also as fair as possible, in all fairness. Tomorrow, Imam Hussain will go in his tent and tell Zainab, can you help me find clothes that I need to wear under my clothes? So he had clothes that he thought the enemy would take it away and leave him naked. So he knew that he was going. Look at the way he made sure that his body is covered. The history, describes that he prepared for himself a kind of a diagram so that he would cover himself and would not be left naked. And that's what they did tomorrow, by the way. They went and they took away everything on his body, every piece of cloth was for these soldiers very holy because he was the grandson of the Prophet, except for his blood. Can you imagine the ridiculousness of such a belief? Can't be true. I'm telling you it can't be true, but if I open pages, you will be shocked to hear how they killed him during the last hour. What did they do? Imam Hussein was Mazloom in the true sense of the word Mazloom. He suffered. He was tortured. They killed him. They threw stones at him. They shot arrows at him. 356 arrows were found on his body. What did he do? What was his sin in the eyes of the people? He was telling the people, don't you know whose son I am? I am the son of Bint Nabiyikum, your prophet's daughter. I belong to that family. Do you know who I am? Yes, yes, we know you're, Bint Nabi, you're the son of Bint Nabi. That was a shocking thing to count, Such holy comes from them. And that's what they do. And they shoot out. Tabari, the historian, tells us that those who did not have arrows, did not have lances, did not have swords, they filled their clothes with stones so that they could hit stones at him. I don't have a very long way to go because I don't want to keep you too long. Is the night that will never be forgotten. It's the night that will always remain as a shock therapy for the Ummah. The Ummah will be shocked to have tolerated such a wrongdoing at such a level is unimaginable. I'm telling you, we read about the story of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And, one of the Egyptians have written a very good, Qaryatul Zalimat. He has a book, the City of Rome, in which he describes and discusses the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. You know what is the major difference between the two? If that is correct, the way we are being told by the New Testament, if that's what the passion was all about, those who killed him were not among the Ummah of Isa alayhi salam. There were Jews involved. There were Roman soldiers involved. But they were not the followers of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, because the followers were so taken aback, they could not come. I don't know. I'm not going to be, a moral teacher deciding whether they were right or wrong, but I do want to know that, I do want to suggest very clearly that it was hard to believe that Peter or, all the other, companions would not come openly in defense of their master. But Karbala, you see that everybody is with Imam Hussein. Qasim on the night of Ashura is asking for permission that would I be the one allowed to go and fight? Because Qasim is only 13, 14 years old. And 13, 14 years old were not allowed to go as, combatant in the fights. But Qasim was there. In other words, even Qasim went, despite all the problems, and Imam Hussein had to give him the permission based on his father's wasiyah, which he did. But imagine when Ali Akbar goes, imagine when Abu Fazl Abbas goes. Now I come to the last, person that I should mention here is that if Umayyads had succeeded in their propaganda, they would have put down Imam Hussein in many, many ways, created false accounts, everything to put together so that Imam Hussein does not appear to be really wrong, but rather, it was a tit for a tat. It happened in Badr. They killed, Ali ibn Abi Talib killed the leaders of Umayyads in Badr, in Uhud, Now it was time for them to take the revenge in a very tribal fashion. Where is all this Islam then? After 60 Hijrah, where is Islam? It's not a short period, it's a 6 decades of Islam. Where is it? And Imam Hussein, is being tortured cruelly. Why is this so? Why is such a blinder in front of our eyes to see the truth? And remember, religion will suffer when the truth is not confronted. Truth must be faced by the people so that they understand what went wrong. Your gathering, your coming together here is there's something very important about you. I do not need to say, very praiseworthy thing, but I do want to acknowledge one thing, that if you did not believe in what happened on the Ashura night, you wouldn't be here. You are here so that you can participate. I'm telling you, participate with whom? Participate with Fatima Zahra Salam alayhi. She's here. Participate with Ali ibn Abi Talib. Participate with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's here. You think he doesn't participate? He didn't come to Karbala to see what happened to himself? You think so? We have looked at eyes. We have not seen any angels, by the way. Whereas we all read Inna Anzalna, and then we do say that Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr, tanazzalul malaika, and you and I don't even see any malaika. It's saying, whenever you read, you will see the tanazzul of the malaika. Who has seen it? In the moderns, we have no such capacity to see the angels. But that's what the Quran says. You better believe that when you read the Quran, then the angels are coming down as they came down when it was revealed. And towards the end, and Imam Hussein did not want to leave anything doubtful in his mission. The one thing that was still remaining is that, there are historians who say, well, he should have, signed a peace treaty with Yazid. Didn't the Prophet do it in Hudaybiyah? That's how they talk, by the way. Didn't he do it in Hudaybiyah? Well, why don't you do it then? Why are you not submitting to that kind of logic? That's a political logic. If you believe that's what the politics is supposed to do, and Imam Hussein is supposed to, submit. What would have happened if Imam Hussein had submitted? Would they have left his family alone? Would they have not killed him? Because he was a threat. For Banu Umayyah, Ahl Bayt were a threat. From the beginning to the end, they never left them alone. And they knew very well where they stood. At the last moment, Imam Hussein comes to the tent and talks to Zainab, I would like to see my son. I would like to see my son. And if Zainab knows that he wants to see Ali Asghar. Ali Asghar this night has not slept at all. It's been crying. Rabab, the mother, has been trying to feed him all the night without any. There was no milk left. She had not done the work. How could there be milk for her? Ali Asghar, if Zainab brings the baby and gives it in the hands of Imam Hussein, maybe they will give water to him. She's still hopeful. She's still hopeful. Maybe they will give water to him. And Imam Hussein looked at the baby. Parents know when the babies are suffering. They know what's happening to the children. When I was little, I saw I saw my Mom standing with Ali Asghar in the place where we had Mehfil Asghari in the name of the child that she's standing there with Ali Asghar. I'm not making it up. I'm not imagining. Ali Asghar, Imam Hussain took Ali Asghar back to Umar Baba. Well, give him some good clothes. Dress him up with good clothes. Mother, my baby is going to get some water now that his father is taking him. There is always a hope hidden in something. The baby was prepared, given in the hands of Imam Hussain. Imam Hussain comes out and covers the baby with his abba. And comes out and stands in the place where it is still marked in Karbala, if you go, that this is where he stood. They thought Hussein had come with the Quran to ask for peace. But there was no Quran, there was a living Quran in his hand. There was Ali Asghar in his hand. Ali Asghar must have been 5 months and 20 days, something like that, because he was born in Rajab. By this time, he must have been 5 months, less than 6 months. Imam Hussain opens his abba and raises Ali Asghar in his hand. I'm not able to say everything, but I will say this much, that he told Ali Asghar, you met the Hujjat Imam for them. You tell them what is happening to you. And Ali Asghar started moving, his tongue on his lips. The battle was turning into sympathy for Imam Hussain, by the way. Yes, Tabari tells us, some other historians also have supported it, that there were some people in the army of Imam Hussain who said, no, we can't do that. We have to give water to the baby. Umar ibn Saad was puzzled and he made a quick decision. He told Hormala, cut the request of Imam Hussain. He took the arrow head. He was known as an archer. And the baby was hit in the neck. And the arrow was struck in the hand of Imam Hussain. Can you imagine the condition of Imam Hussain? Tomorrow is the Amal of Ashura. You will be doing this Amal, by the way. You do the Shabi, actually, as I believe this is the Shabi, that Allama Shustari, Shahid Salis, who's buried in Agra, in his book, Majalis al-Mu'mineen, says very clearly that we are doing the Shabi of Imam Hussain walking with the baby forward and backward, and saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. 7 times he said, because he did not have the strength to go and get Umar above. Your baby has drunk water. He came inside and left the baby in the lap of Umar Rabab. Umar Rabab sees the baby. The baby has been injured. There is blood everywhere. And she cries, and her Marcia has her Noha, as we would say, is in the box by the Afayan Hurak, Miss Lakia Bunaya. Do they kill a baby like you? What kind of people are these that they can kill a baby like you? Imam Hussain showed the world, saying that I want you to remember there was no humanity left in these Muslims who were there to kill me. It was true, there was no humanity left. The rest is, I will be very short and quick with the rest. I think I am now coming for tomorrow, and I am presenting what the Riwayah tells me, that Imam Hussain alayhi salam was left alone. He got on his horse and looked around on the left side, on the right side, and he greeted all of us. And slowly he brought his horse close within the tent and got down from the horse and called upon Alaykum minni salam ya Zainab. My last greeting to you, O Zainab. My last greetings to you, O Kulsum. My last greetings to you, O Sakina. All the family members are being greeted. Imam Hussein did not forget anyone. I am telling you, even Fizza, the woman who served Ahlul Bayt all these years, he remembered her. Oh, Fizza, my mother, Assalamu alaikum. Here is my greetings to you also. And Imam Hussein comes in now. Bibi Zainab is, saying that, please come in, we want to see you for the last time. She knew it, that it was coming. It was not without any reason. And all the women stood in two lines. And Imam Hussein was passing through them. At the end of the line was Zainab and Kulsum. And Zainab was Zainab in the reach. Zainab, embraced and kissed on his neck and said, oh, brother, Mama was saying that when my son comes for the last farewell greetings, do kiss him on his neck, because they will then cut his neck. The story was known in the family of the Prophet that what they will do. You think people can really escape any responsibility of that? And it was, Zohar time. I'm cutting short. I don't have the strength to take you to the end of the journey, by the way. I just want to tell you that it was a difficult journey for Zainab, salamu alayha. Zainab was very strong woman. There was nobody like Zainab. Nobody like Zainab. Imam Hussein trusted her. And he came for the last time. He said, Zainab, take me to my son Ali ibn Hussein Sajjad. And Bibi Zainab takes Imam Hussein and comes to Sajjad. Says, Sajjad is unconscious, gets fever. They wake him up. Sajjad, wake up. Your father is here. And Imam Hussein looks at Sajjad and says, Sajjad, I've come to bid you farewell. I should go. You are Imam after me. You will do the necessary, all the responsibility. Baba, why are you going? Where is Uncle Abbas? Where is Brother Ali Akbar? Where are others? They all have been putted. They have been killed. There's no one left but me and you. And Imam Hussein is telling him, Ali Sajjad, when you go back to Medina, they will ask you about me. Tell them your Imam went cursed. He had no water until last week. And whenever you drink water, remember him. In this sharbat that Imam Hussein is talking about is the water. And he says, let my followers remember me that I was thirsty. And that's why today, everywhere, wherever we go and we have azah, we have Sabila Hussein. What is Sabila Hussein? It is giving people water. Be giving people water to remind them that our Mawla was killed without water. And after that, Imam Hussein comes in the battlefield, and I come to the end. Imam Zain al-Abidin tells Bibi Zainab, Ma, and aunt, open the curtain. I want to see my father's jihad. It was visible, by the way. You could see it. And Imam Hussein was in the last throes. And after that, all of a sudden, there was a head that was seen on the lens, and Zainab and all other, women were all shocked to see the head. But even at that moment, by the way, the Zuljanah came. The horse of Imam Hussein came running back. Sakina got to the horse. Sakina told the horse, where is my father? Where did you leave my father? And Sakina could not hear anything the horse said, but the horse was as if embarrassed. Bibi, I don't know how I can tell you, but Baba is already, his head is on the was a night of film. If only we can imagine what the film would look like. It's the night that you and I gather and say, Sam, if only we could be with you on this day in Karbala. If only we could be with you. And yes, Mom Senda was around, but I said, yes, you are with me, I'm with you. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.